Welcome to week 7 of Faith for Life. We're back in our book this week, The Faith of Leap by Michael Frost and Alan Hirsch. This week we're looking at chapter 4, The Hero's Journey. The first quote I want to look at is about heroism and the Apostle Paul. It says, "It's fair to say that Paul led an unusually full and adventurous life. Paul is and remains a lasting symbol of spiritual heroism and model of Christ-like discipleship." Heroes are important not only because they symbolize what we believe to be important, but because they also convey universal truths about personal self-discovery and self-transcendence, one's role in society, and the relationship between the two. We can do with more heroes like Paul around in our day. And then the authors transitioned from talking about Paul to talking about the whole of the gospel. The quest for heroic adventure then is a quest for the gospel, although it might not be seen that way by everyone. And so, when churches distance themselves from such adventure, they are inhibiting a fundamental human impulse and desire to be part of something significant that has eternal consequences. Think about this for a moment. Eternal consequences. The quest for the gospel combines our desire for heroic adventure with our deepest need for salvation. It's the perfect adventure story. And as leaders in the church, we get to be part of telling this story as characters that reflect the Creator. Next, the authors talk more about community and our need for authenticity. The hunger for community is a legitimate one, but to pursue it for its own sake is a mistake. When we seek to build community without the experience of liminality, all we end up with is the kind of pseudo-community that pervades many churches. It's more like a support group than a communitas. And we're not for a minute suggesting that Christian communitas shouldn't cater to the need we all have for safety. Indeed, they should. But we must fashion safe spaces not as alternatives to missional engagement in our world, but as parallel experiences to that engagement. Have you been in a group that forfeited missional engagement for safety? I have, and it was disappointing and void. It was like a support group, and I did not need the church to provide a support group. I needed the church to help facilitate liminality and communitas. Frost and Hirsch refer to the Lord of the Rings trilogy numerous times in their book, and it's a great analogy for the type of adventure we're called to as Christians. The authors write this about discipleship. Can you imagine how exciting it would be for young Christians if they understood their vocation as disciples as not dissimilar from the hero's journey, including a call to adventure, the role of mentors and friends and allies, and the importance of trials and ordeals? When mission catalyzes discipleship, new believers should be commissioned as missionaries and mentored by mature missionaries, not merely to learn the names of all the books in the Bible in order, but to discern God's greater calling in their lives and to knit this calling to their conversion to Christ. To help us understand the importance of serving and strengthening the internal life of the church, as well as the external dimension of the church or the mission, Frost and Hirsch dissect another set of authors' work on what is called the missional matrix. The other set of authors are Colin Green and Martin Robinson. According to Green and Robinson, there are 4 parts to the missional matrix. Let's look at them now. The first is the internal individual quadrant, also called discipleship. This first part is important because, as I'm sure you're aware, the church is responsible for making more and maturing disciples. Green and Robinson say there are 2 aspects of disciple making: embracing spiritual disciplines and developing habits of the heart. Spiritual disciplines include prayer, reading the Bible, fasting, meditation, study, worship through singing, and a number of others. A really great resource for spiritual disciplines is a book by Richard Foster called Celebration of Discipline. By developing habits of the heart, Green and Robinson mean, instead of an overwhelming sense of individualism, developing an orientation toward community. And in their own words, a separation of happiness from virtue, and an abandonment of consumerism. The second quadrant in the missional matrix is the external individual quadrant, otherwise known as mobilization. Frost and Hirsch say on page 124, when individual believers are adequately discipled, taught, mentored, corrected, encouraged, they cannot but live out their deep devotion to Jesus in their homes, their workplaces, and their leisure pursuits. The essence of this quadrant is telling people about Jesus wherever you are. The third is the external community quadrant, or societal engagement. Both of the first two quadrants were about individual efforts, first in discipleship and then in evangelism. This third quadrant is about a group effort to work on a project to effect change in your community. Frost and Hirsch say that while some argue that they have no desire or need to take part in a communal missional project, if this quadrant is missing, so is the opportunity for healthy discipleship and communitas. The fourth is the internal community quadrant, otherwise known as communitas. Now, we know all about communitas from previous chapters, so the authors don't give us much in this chapter, but they do emphasize that you can't have communitas if you don't have a communal missional project. It would be easy if we could have a linear step-by-step diagram like the following to show us exactly how to reach optimal mission, but that's not how it works, which is why Green and Robinson developed their model as a matrix instead of a linear cause and effect work. Instead, we need to think of all four pieces as concurrent priorities, as Hirsch and Frost say on page 127, believing that discipleship, personal witness, communal mission, and communitas catalyze and sharpen each other. So this model shows us that one feeds another, which feeds another. Now let's go to our Week 7 forum discussion questions. Number 1. What is the hardest part of the missional matrix for you to accomplish? And what is the easiest? Number 2. Reflect on the following quote. Can you imagine how exciting it would be for young Christians if they understood their vocation as disciples as not dissimilar from the hero's journey, including a call to adventure, the role of mentors and friends and allies, and the importance of trials and ordeals? What can you do to instill in others a sense of heroic adventure as you discipled them? Make your initial post by midnight Wednesday. Respond to 2 of your class members' posts by midnight Friday. I look forward to hearing from you.